Next up, though, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, did not see Charles during the trip to London this week. It was reported, according to the Times, there are different versions of the story, depending on who asked who, whether they should see who. It's all a bit complicated. The King agreed, apparently, to a request from the Duke of Sussex to stay in a royal residence for the last week of his trip to London, mindful that his youngest son no longer has an official UK residence. That's what's reported. And in the event, however, Harry is thought to have chosen to stay in a hotel during his 3-day visit. Meanwhile, an official scheme to deliver portraits of the King has been extended, and it now includes hospital, Coast Guard centres, job centres, universities, Church of England, churches and other public institutions. Well, let's welcome back to my clashes Lord Daniel Moylan, Conservative member of the House of Lords, and also Norman Baker, former Liberal Democrat minister. Right, Daniel, what do you think then? Have you been following this royal story with Prince Harry coming to the UK and not seeing his father?
No. To be perfectly honest, I don't find the whole Prince Harry thing terribly interesting. And let's put this in an historical perspective. This is mild stuff. I mean, George III in the 18th century famously got on extremely badly with all his sons, who were absolutely brutal to him and completely horrible during his long reign. And Edward III not only deposed his father, he was almost certainly party to the plot to murder him later. So, you know, just not turning up while the King's at a garden party and so on. This is all very mild stuff. It's not very interesting in the historical perspective. Fathers and sons argue, that includes kings. He hasn't actually set about to achieve any of his historical precedents. He's just sort of going to live in California, which is relatively mild compared to what has happened in the past.
Norman Baker.
Well, I'm getting Prince Harry fatigue, to be honest with you, in terms of the stories which continually appear in the papers about him and Meghan. I mean, it is peculiar, I suppose, that he was over here from California and 2 miles away from the King, and they didn't see each other. I'm sure they could have arranged it had they wanted to. But ultimately, in a way, it's a family matter. He's divorced himself from the royal family, or divorced himself from his royal role, at least. He's living in California now in some sort of different lifestyle. He's entitled to do that if he wants to do that. And I think if he wants to see the King and the King wants to see him, that's up to them, really.
But don't you think it's a bit sad, though, the whole story, the whole situation? It is a bit, isn't it?
But as Daniel actually says, you know, sorry to be agreeing with him, but, you know, families are families, and people do disagree with each other in families, and that's what happens.
So what are your views on this, the portraits then going up in different places of the King, bearing in mind that Oxford University, was it Magdalen College, where the students were worried that the pictures of the Queen would upset foreign students, and remind them of colonialisation?
Pictures because they might upset foreign students. That's a rubbish reason not to have a picture. What I would say is that there's £8 million being spent on this. Of course, whenever you spend public money, you've got to justify it. That is an allocation. Many people will support it. Others will say, could we spend it a different way? I note that the Church of England places of worship are going to get the portrait, but not other religious buildings. And of course, Charles has always said he wants to be a defender of all faiths rather than just one faith, so that's in a way undermining his own position.
Well, maybe they're not interested in that. What do you think, Daniel?
Well, I think it's marvellous that there should be more portraits of the King everywhere. The King is a sign of unity for the country. We all have great admiration for him. We're thinking about him at this time when his health is suffering. And I think it's true. Public buildings have always had portraits of the monarch in them. And of course, they should have this official portrait. It should be hanging there proudly.